You ever notice how the most confident person in the room is almost never the smartest one? Like, you're sitting in a meeting trying to understand the actual problem, and there's always that one guy who hasn't read a single document, but he's already leaning forward like he's about to save Western civilization. He talks fast, he uses big words wrong, he nods at himself while explaining something that is provably incorrect, and somehow people are listening. 3 nods, a great insight, a calendar invite. Like he just solved world hunger with interpretive dance. Meanwhile, the person who actually understands what's going on is quiet. Not because they're shy, because they're thinking, double-checking, asking, wait, am I missing something? Running the numbers again, considering edge cases. And every time they pause, Mr. Wrong But Confidence already halfway through his second metaphor, probably comparing budgets to a toddler juggling flaming swords. And somehow, it works. Confidence doesn't just beat intelligence, it pretends to be intelligence. Speak without hesitation, you sound like a leader. Choose your words carefully, suddenly you're difficult. Pause too long? Congratulations, you just handed the room to the loud guy. Thinking takes time, doubt takes energy. Confidence is cheap. Say it with enough certainty and people stop asking questions, not because you're right, but because no one wants to be the actually guy in the room. Smart people hesitate because they know how wrong they could be. They've seen complexity. They've learned from mistakes. That pause? That's all the time stupid confidence needs to dominate. And here's the kicker. Once you see it here, you start seeing it everywhere. In meetings, on social media, on Zoom calls where Karen is suddenly a strategic visionary, on Reddit threads where someone types in all caps and somehow convinces 2,000 people they're a genius. And you realize, the loudest voice isn't just winning the room. It's painting reality with a giant, absurd brush. And somehow, everyone applauds.
If it happens in meetings, it happens everywhere. The internet is basically a giant, endless conference room, except the loudest person has a megaphone, a TikTok account, and zero fact-checking. And somehow, their confidence counts as truth. Scroll for 30 seconds and you'll see it. Someone posts a hot take with zero research, all caps, emojis flying, and 10,000 people nod along like they just witnessed a revelation. Meanwhile, the quiet expert in the comments carefully explains nuance, cites sources, and gets buried under gifs of dancing cats and avatars screaming, "You're wrong." And it doesn't stop there. On Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, anyone who hesitates is a ghost. Anyone who questions is a villain. Meanwhile, the loudest voices are suddenly thought leaders, political analysts, even cultural icons. One absurd post about budgeting like a chef juggling chainsaws, and suddenly brands are rethinking their entire strategy because the confident idiot convinced them he knows the recipe. Here's the kicker. This isn't chaos. It's predictable. Confidence is contagious. It feels like certainty, and people crave certainty, even if it's wrong. The louder, the more absurd, the more people believe it. And the smarter someone is, the longer they pause, the more ground they give up. Now imagine this pattern in power. CEOs, politicians, even newsrooms. Reality bends toward the loudest, most confident narrative. Facts are optional. Performance is optional. What matters is conviction, spectacle, and timing. And when someone finally says, wait, that's insane, it's too late. The internet already agreed, applauded, and moved on. Once you see it online, you start seeing it in real life. Conferences, boardrooms, elections. And you realize the loudest voice doesn't just win arguments. It wins reality itself. And sometimes, the world bends just to match its confidence.
So now you've seen it in meetings. You've seen it on the internet. You've watched confidence, bold as intelligence, nuance, and common sense. But here's the terrifying part. It's winning in real life. And sometimes, the stakes are enormous. Politicians say one thing with a straight face, and billions believe it. CEOs announce a revolutionary strategy that makes zero sense, and suddenly, the stock market applauds. Even scientists hesitate to speak up, because the loudest voice has already convinced everyone else that he's the authority. One guy with a PowerPoint about cat memes becomes a visionary, and a global brand scrambles to follow him, because no one wants to be the person who says, wait, that's ridiculous. And here's the punchline. You don't have to be wrong to win. You just have to be louder, bolder, and more absurd than everyone else. Post confidently, gesture dramatically, wear the right expression, and people will follow. Even if you're juggling flaming pineapples while reciting the quadratic formula backwards, conviction alone can make you king of the room. But here's the secret the quiet, thoughtful people already know. This pattern is predictable. Once you recognize the formula, you can see it before it dominates. Confidence plus absurdity plus timing equals perceived authority. pause, observe, spot it. And then you either ride the wave or stay aware while the world bends around you. Because if you don't notice, reality doesn't just bend, it folds itself to match the loudest voice. And the craziest part? The world applauds, posts TikToks, and makes memes, while the thoughtful, cautious people are left wondering, how did that even happen? Once you see it fully, you realize the loudest voice isn't just shaping arguments, trends, or opinions. It's reshaping the rules of reality itself. And that, my friend, is where the real game